Popcorn explodes at nearly 135 pounds per square inch, about 9 times the pressure inside a car tire. That's real, measured pressure, packed inside a kernel small enough to balance on your fingertip. Most people assume popcorn just expands when it gets hot, the way a marshmallow puffs up near a fire. That explanation is too simple, and it skips the actual violence involved. Every kernel that pops is a tiny pressure vessel reaching its structural limit and rupturing in a fraction of a second. It's less like toasting and more like a very small, very edible explosion. Let's cut one open and see exactly what builds up inside. A popcorn kernel isn't just dried corn, it's a sealed capsule. Inside sits a dense core of starch, and packed into that starch is a small but crucial amount of water, usually around 14% by weight. Wrapped around all of it is the hull, a hard, nearly waterproof shell of cellulose. That hull is the key detail everyone skips over. It's not just corn skin, it's a pressure-tight seal, strong enough to hold in vapor that would otherwise escape as steam. Nature built popcorn's ancestor a tiny steel drum purely by accident, and we've been exploiting it for thousands of years. Here's the version most of us picked up somewhere. Heat makes the kernel soft, and it puffs up like bread in an oven. Wrong. Bread expands slowly, gently, over minutes, as gas bubbles stretch dough that's already soft. Popcorn does the opposite. Right up until the moment it pops, the kernel is rock hard. Heat alone doesn't soften at all. If gentle expansion were the real story, popcorn would swell smoothly instead of detonating in one instant, and you could stop it halfway. You can't. Something else is holding it together, then instantly is not. Here's what's really happening. As the kernel heats past the boiling point of water, that 14% moisture inside the starch turns to steam. But the hard hull won't let the steam escape. It's sealed shut. So the steam is nowhere to go, and pressure starts stacking up inside the kernel, climbing far past anything water vapor could reach in an open pot. The starch itself starts to soften and gelatinize under that heat and pressure, turning gluey and pliable while the hull outside stays rigid. It's a bomb built from a battle. Steam pushing out, hull holding in, and the hull is losing. The pressure keeps climbing until it hits roughly 135 pounds per square inch, at a kernel temperature around 356 degrees Fahrenheit. That's the hull's breaking point, and when it goes instantly. Not a slow leak, a structural failure. The shell ruptures, and the steam trapped inside detonates outward in microseconds. The superheated, gelatinized starch is blasted from the core, and as it hits the open air, the pressure around it drops instantly, so the water flashes into vapor even faster, foaming the starch up into that light, fluffy structure you actually eat. The pop sound is the shock wave of the hull failing, not a sizzle. That's also why popcorn looks nothing like the kernel it came from. The dense starchy interior is now on the outside, puffed into a white foam, while shreds of the old hull get shoved to the edges or blown off completely. That's the little hard bits you find at the bottom of the bowl. The kernel has essentially turned itself inside out under pressure, in less time than it takes to blink. It isn't melting or dissolving. It's a structural failure followed by an instant foam explosion, frozen the moment it cools. This also explains why stale popcorn kernels refuse to pop. Remember, the whole mechanism runs on that 14% trapped moisture. If a kernel dries out too much in storage, there isn't enough water left to build real pressure before the hull just cracks and vents, a dud. That's why bags say to store kernels sealed, and why some recipes even suggest adding a few drops of water back to old popcorn to revive it. No moisture, no ischi, no explosion. The magic was never in the corn. It was always in the trapped water. So next time a bag of popcorn crackles in the microwave, you're listening to hundreds of tiny pressure vessels failing on cue, each one built from nothing more than starch, a hard shell, and a little trapped water. It's not gentle expansion. It's steam, sealed and pressurized until the hull can't hold it anymore. Simple ingredients, genuinely wild physics. If you didn't expect popcorn to be this violent, that's exactly why we keep cutting things open. Subscribe at Cutaway 360. See you in the next one.